Well, guys, we made it. It's 2023, and everything is dead. The Queen of England is dead. Twitter is dead. Overwatch is dead. I'm dead. I shouldn't even make that joke because that guy's career is dead. And possibly, worst of all, the Nintendo 3DS is super dead. But I kind of wish it wasn't. The 3DS is my favorite video game console, period. It might just be the nostalgia talking, but I don't think any console can stand up to the sheer number of kick-ass games this thing had during its lifespan. And those good games have been pretty consistent throughout the console's life. Sure, the launch was pretty bad, but in the years after that, shit was going crazy with Mario Kart, Pokemon, Kid Icarus, SMT. Like, 2013 alone had so many insane games that I kinda wanna make a video just to go over them all. Then you had the years after that when people will throw up a PNG of Ziplash and act like Nintendo was dying, but shit was still going. We were still getting some extremely good games. But then you had the end times. The 3DS from the Switch's launch in March of 2017 to its quiet phase-out in 2019. Sure, every console is gonna have to die eventually, and most get at least a handful of new games after its successor comes out. But to me, it felt like the 3DS was still alive and well during these years. You could still bring it to school or the airport and get plenty of street passes. Nintendo Directs were still split between Switch and 3DS games. It was still Nintendo's main handheld. But then you look at the games that actually came out and you're like, oh no, when the hell did all this happen? See, this was that weirdo period when Nintendo wasn't sure how big of a success the Switch would be and if they still needed the old bitch as a backup. And so Reggie was like, oh, we're still planning on supporting the 3DS for years to come. But he wasn't really. So the solution was to make a billion ports of games that usually weren't even 10 years old with negligible changes. Wii U game with one new feature. DS game with Japanese voiceover, DS game with slightly upgraded graphics, Luigi's Mansion, for some reason. Sure, some of these ports were fine, but most of them were just unnecessary. In its last few years, so much of the 3DS's library was just, why bother? And now, it's 2023. The last big game for the system came out almost 4 years ago. This doesn't count. The eShop had been playing the same theme since June 2019 up until its closure last month. Despite still getting sales from Capcom and Atlas fairly often, the main screen never deviated from showing Detective Pikachu, Kirby's Epic Yarn, and Bowser's Inside Story. But now, it's done. The eShop has closed, and with it, the general consensus is that the 3DS is finally dead for real. And all we have left is a quote-unquote portable console that doesn't even fit in your pocket. But what if there was something there? Something new and noteworthy in that eShop in the years after the Switch launched. Something left behind to be dug up and put on a 3DS hidden gems list by some poor underpaid journalism major working for Kotaku. A game that was more than a dumbass port with Street Pass that nobody used. Yeah, I think there were a few of those. Maybe enough to make a whole video on. Has anyone done that yet? A couple people? Fuck it, I'll do it anyway. In this video, I want to do some lightning round reviews of a few of the 3DS games that were released in the US after the Switch launched that you probably remember but might not have played, leaving out eShop-only releases and, of course, all those ports/remakes. I'm not going to be able to get to everything, but if it was at least semi-well-known or I think it's cool, I'll go over it briefly. Quick disclaimer, I didn't have time to play through every game on this list to completion, but I went through them enough to the point where I got an opinion I'm willing to fight over. So if the Miitopia fandom gets on my case for quitting when I did, you can send a complaint to my P.O. box here. Not all of these games are winners, but I do still think that the 3DS had those great games up until the end, and that most of these games are still worth the money. Okay. Fuck, maybe not that much money. Well, you know, you could always, oh, wow, sorry, something stuck my throat there. So sit back, grab a snack, get those eShop downloads queued, and let's fucking go. First game. Okay, I'm breaking the no remakes rule right off the bat. This is technically a remake of a Famicom game that came out in 1992, but come on, that doesn't count. Shadows of Valentia fundamentally changes everything about that shit and doesn't just slap in higher definition character portraits or some bare bones new mode. This is not comparable to all this. So I've never been a Fire Emblem guy. I like this one, I'm playing through this one right now and I'm having fun, but almost everything past that point in the timeline is like weirdo touching little girls simulator, lost items snooze fest simulator, and Fire Emblem Engage, which I refuse to soil my computer by downloading content depicting it. This is a Fire Emblem game, but it doesn't feel like one, if that makes sense. You aren't planning out which of your units to bang, you aren't staring at Byleth making the same face at you for the whole game. This is a real-ass game where you do real-ass game things, okay? Even without taking all those real game things into account, the overall presentation of this game is excellent. The character portraits have this beautiful painted feel to them, the music bangs, and they added the song from Brawl, and the voice acting is some of the best I've heard in any game I've ever played. Overall, the game just feels a lot more refined and mature than, and the combat is way better than standard Fire Emblem. You aren't wasting time outside of battle fucking around and trying to find the merchant that sells one specific thing or having your dinky little sword break in the middle of battle. Nah. The combat differences are pretty subtle in the grand scheme of things, but make for a much better experience. Weapon skills are pretty cool and take more decision making than, oh no, my weapon durability. Since they draw from your HP, the game's difficulty is usually pretty good, and every time Dean does his crit animation, I pee my pants a little. Oh, you also have Tracer's E ability that lets you unfuck yourself, which seems to be one of the main draws of this game. I didn't use it that much because I'm too good, but it's there if you want it. The game can be a little grindy at times, and I'm not too fond of the dungeon levels, but outside of that, there's not really a whole lot of downtime. I like the characters too. Alm and Celica are nice, and I like all their little buddies, but Dean is my favorite. And they're backed up by voice acting that's so good that I'm bringing it up again. The story is... you fight an evil dragon guy, like in all the other games, but there are some great bits in there, along with some really hype battles. Overall, I think this is one of the most solid games I'm going to cover today. Make no mistake though, there is a healthy amount of stupid shit. Fire Emblem Gaiden is a game that was made back in 1992. When people were still taking Quaaludes recreationally because we hadn't quite run out yet. And it shows. You spend a notable chunk of the game traversing desert maps that prevent 90% of your party from moving more than one square at a time. And the only reason Pegasus Knights are good is because they're immune to this. There's a pretty decent concentration of total garbage units compared to other Fire Emblem games. There are enemies that duplicate themselves if you don't kill them fast enough. They have stupid-ass FromSoft poison swamps. Oh, and the final boss can only be hit by every 4th attack. This is only told to you by a random NPC who counts to 12 and then disappears for no reason. So, yes, this was originally a game that was made when nobody knew how to make games, and I wish a little more work was put in to make it less annoying, but in the grand scheme of things, these low points don't kill the game, not in the slightest. They usually only ruin a few maps at most. You're not slogging through the whole thing wishing you were dead. Other than these downsides, it's a very solid experience. If you're looking to get into Fire Emblem, hot take, I think this is the best place to start. No bullshit, no weird shit, just don't let it give you a good impression of the rest of the series. For some reason, Ever Oasis is the game I envision when I think about the general attitude towards the 3DS's last years. Everybody saw the reveal trailer and was like, wow, an original IP in 2017! The 3DS isn't dead! Then some people wanted to have sex with the fish that had a big butt, and then nobody ever played it. Is it any good though? Yeah. So for those of you that have never played this game, which is probably everyone, this is like a hybrid town simulator / action RPG, which is an innovative idea that's never been done since. You go out and you fight snakes and shit, you gather materials for your town people to run their shops while completing side quests, exploring and recruiting new townspeople with skills that help you explore further, you get more shops and level up your oasis, etc. None of this is particularly deep. Town management is pretty basic, which is fine with me personally. I don't like those kinds of games. I play video games to avoid the responsibility of having to take care of others. It's fairly easy to grow crops and keep your shops at full stock. There are a few times when you're like, oh fuck, I gotta go out and get this one fruit, but it's decently satisfying to stay on top of things. Completing resident side quests and getting new residents is cool too. It's fun to watch your numbers grow and get new party members or new shops. And the way your Oasis's happy meter, which you fill by, making people happy, correlates with how much extra health you have in battle is a nice touch. It's a subtle reminder to keep track of things back home. As for combat / action RPG elements, again, not particularly deep, but not boring. The developers for this game also worked on the 3DS Zelda ports, and the combat is kinda similar to that, except you don't have different items and shit. Unfortunately, the dungeons aren't quite on par with Zelda, but for a handheld game, it works. For the most part, you don't need to worry about optimizing your equipment for each unit or anything. Mostly it's just bringing characters on your team that are strong against the enemies you'd find in a particular dungeon. Each resident also has a skill that helps traverse certain obstacles or gather resources, so that's something to keep in mind too. But it's easy to fast travel back to the Oasis and grab a different resident in case you get stuck and need their skill or something. It's all simple, but it's not horrible. Most of the time the action RPG parts take precedence over the town management stuff, which, again, fine by me, but there's still that gameplay loop of exploration, gathering resources and completing side quests, then returning to town and restocking shops and shit that's easy to get wrapped up in without it being stressful. The story is as E-rated as it gets. I stand by that. But for the most part, whatever story there is usually just happens in the background since the attention is on running your Oasis. The game's general aesthetic is nice and comfy, the desert world feels a bit samey sometimes, but there's enough cool landmarks in the background to make me go, ooh, what's that? And the character designs are really good too. I like the funny scorpion guys the most. Overall, it's just a cute, fun little game. It's got its fans, it shows up in a lot of those top 3DS hidden gems lists, and I'd say, sure. This isn't the best game in the world, but that's well deserved. I'm not gonna lose any sleep over this one selling like shit, but it's cool. If you're going into this one expecting it to blow your dick off, you're gonna be disappointed. But if you're looking at some of the other games on this list and feeling a little overwhelmed, then this might be the game for you. What? I never said I was only going to cover good games, only the notable ones. And this one is notable for how universally reviled it was. So this game was released during that time span when there was that headline floating around that was like, Pikmin 4 has been close to finished since 2015. And when they were like, that's right, Pikmin 4 Nintendo DS, everybody had a damn meltdown. Did the game deserve the hate it got? It didn't deserve hate, but it wasn't a good game. Look, this isn't like an obvious soulless cash grab. It's bad in the sense that it's so unremarkable that it's just boring. You know those multi-platform games they used to have in like the 2000s, usually movie tie-in games, where they had a Wii version and then a DS version that was worse in every way? That's kind of what's going on here. It's Pikmin without anything that makes Pikmin fun. Everything has been dumbed down. No strategizing, no time management, no cool environments or collectible DK bongos. In Hey Pikmin, you spent 90% of your time walking extremely slowly through a piss-easy level, killing any enemies you see and picking up any trash you find. Sometimes you'll run into a puzzle where you have to throw Pikmin somewhere and then get there before they run back to you because they're stupid and you can't dismiss them. Sometimes you fight a laughably easy boss, rinse and repeat until you have $30,000. The music doesn't even hold a candle to the original games. The Pikmin aesthetic gets ruined by boring-ass 2D level design. The game somehow runs worse than shit, even though each Pikmin is only like 7 pixels tall. Like, the game barely feels real. With a series with as much polish as Pikmin, it's honestly surprising to me how this game even exists. But I guess that's to be expected from the same guys who made Balkan Wonderworld. I guess there's a couple of nice things in the game. Throwing Pikmin with the touchscreen works, the new enemy designs can be fun, and although the way the game is split into small levels is stupid as a Pikmin game, it makes sense for something more portable. But overall, yeah, it's not good. I don't really have anything else to say about Hey Pikmin. I admit that I probably quit playing before any of the actual good levels popped up, but I also feel like I gave this game too many chances as is. You can pay me to boot this one up again. I can't really recommend Hey Pikmin to anyone, and if you're a diehard Pikmin fan, you probably already have strong feelings about this one. Like, if you're 5 years old and need something to play on the bus ride to preschool and your mommy has banned Pokemon because it's not Christian enough, then this would be like my 6th or 7th recommendation. If that's not you, then don't bother.
Meme machine, meme machine. I'm a motherfucking meme machine. Meme machine, meme machine.
Miitopia is pretty much just Tomodachi Life if it was an RPG, but not a good RPG. Like, that's actually just it. See, both of these games are just, haha, look, a funny and random thing happened, but they made a whole game out of it. It worked in Tomodachi Life because it's a sim game. Funny shit is the whole draw. And you'd think Miitopia would be the better game because you can't have sex like in Tomodachi Life, but it's not. If you're going into this one expecting anything other than haha, funny and random, then oh boy. That being said, it does kind of capture the same appeal as Tomodachi Life, where it's like,
what the what? Christina Aguilera?
And the Miis are implemented into the Topia pretty well. Thank God the 3DS version lets you bring in Miis from whatever bullshit server this game runs on. The only Miis I have on my 3DS and Tomodachi save file are people I haven't talked to since high school. So if I want, I can just choose Hatsune Miku to be my healer. Awesome. The world of Miitopia consists of you automatically walking in a straight line through a featureless environment until you hit a fork in the road. Then you walk in a straight line in a different direction until you hit a battle, a chest, or an inn. Sometimes your Miis will spout nonsensical one-liners or pull you into a cutscene to talk about how much they like bananas. Stuff like the inn and food and how you don't even have control over what your Miis will buy can be fun and unpredictable, but for the most part, everything here is either mildly amusing or extremely boring. Everything just boils down to, look, funny and random things can happen. Isn't it funny how Snoop Dogg is this NPC? RPG combat itself is, oh wow, cool, your party members attack automatically. Awesome, everybody always loves that. I'm not even gonna try applying a critical RPG enjoyer lens to this, there's no point. The classes are silly, the enemies are silly, the combat is silly. Most of the combat depth is, again, just funny haha randomness that ties into the traits you choose for your Miis and how good or bad their relationships are, which I guess you do kinda control. I just don't like waiting through cutscenes of Reimu busting that ass open to distract enemies for the 40th time. Sure, the first time those new traits or abilities pop up, it's like, okay, cool. But then it just becomes, watch the extended combat cutscene and wait for your turn to do one thing. It's certainly a unique way to do RPG combat, but I just don't find it very interesting. While the character relationship stuff can be funny, I don't think it wows me. It's not like you form an attachment to these characters like another game I'm gonna go over later, and certainly not when you have multiple complete party resets where Dio takes away your dudes and you have to start from scratch. Wait. What the fuck? Stupid ass game, I'm not playing this shit anymore. Yeah, this one's not for me. I don't think it's really bad. If you like silly games or thought Tomodachi Life was fun, you'll probably think this one's fun too. Personally, I prefer to actually play video games and not just wait. It doesn't have the insane Mii Maker that's on the Switch version where you can make pixel-perfect, uncanny Mr. Incredible, but if it costs $0, then sure, it's worth the space it takes up. I mean, sorry. Okay, next game. Drill! Okay, this is another remake that I'm not counting as a remake because it's so different from this, mostly. This is the last time I'm doing this, don't give me shit for it. I mentioned this in my BDSP video, but I've always preferred the Retro Studios and Mercury Steam Metroid games to the first-party ones. But while the Metroid Prime trilogy is a core pillar of who I am as a person, Dread and Samus Returns, not so much. Samus Returns is one of I call these my November games. Here's a full definition in case you give a shit, but in a nutshell, I thought these games were mostly good, but I don't remember them very well, and I'm not attached to them. Samus Returns is probably my biggest example of this weird phenomenon that I'm probably overthinking. Out of all the 2D Metroid games I've played, I think this one is my favorite, in terms of gameplay at least. Aeon Scan is a godsend and makes the game a million times more playable than Super or Fusion, and in my opinion it outclasses Dread because it doesn't have any stealth sections. Stealth being in quotation marks, of course, because your actions in these sections don't actually matter and you're gonna fucking die no matter what. But that's a topic for another time. Being able to easily locate hidden passages, parrying, 360-degree aiming off of ledges. When looking at exploration and moment-to-moment combat, Samus Returns is pretty damn good. Which is a shame because it tends to fall flat in a lot of other aspects. Again, it's a remake of a game from 1991. Thankfully, you don't have to be on Quaaludes to appreciate this game, but it wouldn't hurt if you still have some. I like how most Metroid games are pretty light on story, but kill the 40 Metroids and do nothing else is just fucking garbage. It's the most boring thing they could have possibly done. Well, this game has had some serious work done and is certainly a vast improvement over Metroid 2. You're still fighting the same, 4 bosses throughout 90% of the game, and I don't think any of them are that fun, even if they do some stuff to mix up the fights. You know, the more I go through this game, the more I realize I didn't really like. I'm not a fan of the Aeon Gauge. It felt like these could have just been individual cooldowns, so that way I don't have to waste my time waiting for enemies to respawn so I can charge my armor and get out of a specific area. And save spots, teleporters, energy spots, ammo refills, and health refills are all different things for some horrific reason. What the fuck? And also you get Baby Metroid 10 minutes before the game ends, so you have to hella backtrack if you want 100% this game like a sicko. I get it, most game designers should not be held accountable for someone else's shitty decisions in the 90s. There was some serious effort to modernize this game with all the cool gameplay stuff I mentioned earlier. And there were some honest attempts to spruce up annoying shit like redesigning repeat bosses and being lenient on respawn locations. But there's so much dumb stuff that they missed. after thoroughly reviewing it, I think I get why Samus Returns never left that much of an impact on me. There's a lot of spectacular stuff, but just as much frustrating shit that makes me not want to play it again. In that equation of good minus bad, this game does certainly manage to come up positive. Exploration's fun, combat's fun, the game controls well, and it blows the original Game Boy version out of the water. For the most part, it's a lot more fun than other 2D Metroids. But there's a lot that's just stupid. Not this stupid, though. Remember Detective Pikachu? He was in a movie once. He was gonna be on the Switch, but then Game Freak probably sold him to the glue factory so they could make more Pokemon League of Legends characters. So Detective Pikachu never made it past the 3DS, and since this game released in 2018, now I have to talk about Pokemon again, after I just said I wouldn't do that anymore. Thanks a lot, asshole. Detective Pikachu is a mystery visual novel where you have to solve enthralling cases like who beat the fuck out of Apom and why some Pokemon are so mad. You find evidence, talk to people, use your brain, whatever. Look, this is a shitty diaper baby game, okay? I play a lot of visual novels. I've played all the good Ace Attorney games, all the good Zero Escape games, and all the good, never mind. And you want me, the ace detective Stell, to find out why Burmy is naked? Ah, child's play. The gameplay is just like the gameplay of every other visual novel, where you do a whole lot of this. You solve enthralling mysteries like what colors you mix to make orange, you do some QTEs, and sometimes you watch Pikachu do some funny shit. It's not hard. It's not even that fun. It's not even that long. What the fuck? And the story just copies a ton of shit from the movie. Like, there's some differences, but the general gist is almost identical. Actually, no, it ends on a fucking cliffhanger. We never actually get to see Ryan Reynolds. Why the fuck did you turn him into glue? We weren't done with him yet. The voice acting's pretty good though, and all the Pokemon are funny and emotive. I think my favorite part about the game overall is seeing how they try to world build out an actual functioning Pokemon society and aren't just like, yeah, this is a place that exists. But that kinda gets ruined because the human models look like shit. Oh my god. These don't even look like they belong in a Pokemon game. This is like Mickey's Funny Castle on the DS Geppetto art style NPCs. This shit bewilders and perplexes me, Watson. Overall, the game didn't impress me. Once again, that's Pokemon, but past that, there's not a whole lot here. It's not engaging as a visual novel, there's no aha or oh shit moments like in other VNs, because it's a little kiddie game. There's nothing wrong with games being for kids, but there's nothing that keeps it interesting or fun. Sure, the Pokemon are cute, they try to tell a story, but the boring gameplay and the horror just ruins it. It doesn't surprise me that this game will probably not get a sequel. If you're a Pokemon fan and you're tired of all the bullshit free-to-play spin-off games, don't check this game out. Check out literally any other Pokemon spin-off. Or if you're 5 years old and your mommy has banned Hey Pikmin because it's not Christian enough, maybe this game is for you. I actually kinda like the movie though, so maybe watch that instead. Is that on Netflix? No? Oh wow, what a fucking surprise! Let me get one thing straight. WarioWare has always kicked serious ass, and fuck you if you disagree with me. This is a game that says, you are not here to sit through an 80-hour story. You are not here to grind for 400 years. You are going to watch an old man piss all over the floor and then match the right vegetable and do it again. And I think WarioWare Gold has perfected that floor-pissing design philosophy. This is one of those games where you can tell they wanted to make it as fun as they could. They put some serious love into this one. The game's fully voice acted and it sounds extremely good. The overall design of the game and the animation is super charming even if it is a little cheap looking. And the microgames? Oh, they're good, baby. Everybody involved with this one just put their whole Wario pussy into it. Splitting the microgames up into stages that focus on buttons, touchscreen, and the gyroscope is perfect. When's the last time you used the 3DS gyroscope in a way that was fun and not just frustrating? It's a genius way to include microgames from across the whole series without butchering the way they control. And then you have the stages that include all 3 control types and you have to swap between them. It's really well designed, and there aren't too many microgames where it's not immediately obvious how they work. But I don't even need to talk about the specifics of the games themselves. With like a few exceptions, they're all just mwah. Some reviews complain that this game uses too many old microgames, but it's a compilation game, who gives a shit? It's still fun. I'll always miss the shitty audio compression and 2004 imported PNGs of the Game Boy WarioWare, but the old games have been updated very well to the point that I barely recognize them as old games. This game has so much soul for a 3DS game that my only reminder that it was released a year after the launch of the Switch was the microgame and 9-volt stage where you have to click on a Joy-Con. And a lot of the extras are super fun too, even if they're certainly not as engaging as the microgames themselves. Seeing shit like Wario's amiibo sketches is hilarious, and the remastered versions of vocal songs throughout the series' history is also great. Most of the collectibles are pointless, but it's worth it for the cool shit. They even let you make your own YouTube poops out of the cutscenes in the game. Check out the one that I made.
Welcome to Gigantaburger. What can I get you?
I think the biggest weakness of this game is that it's meant for real short bursts, like after 15 minutes it starts feeling stale. That's kind of by design. For those 15 minutes it's fun, but then you just get burnt out on the stage you're playing. It's not like there's nothing to do in this game, far from it. It's just that you reach a point where you're like, okay, I'm done for now. Sure, you could argue that the game isn't AAA because there's not really a story or it's not deep, but that is how WarioWare is. The bite-sized story scenarios and silly characters that live in this weird pseudo-canon will always be charming to me. And it doesn't need those big elements to be engaging. This game is fun, brainless, and perfect if your doctor tells you you only have 10 minutes to live. Like, what else could you want? Who cares if it's not God of Wario Ragnarok? WarioWare Gold is a good-ass game, and I think we should all strive to be a little more like Wario.
Odyssey, 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 Odyssey.
I love RPGs, but I've never been a big fan of dungeon crawlers. My whole relationship with this genre is that I was too stupid and impatient to figure out Explorers of Sky as a kid, and I'm too stupid and impatient to figure out Labyrinth of Refrain as an adult. And I've never played Etrian Odyssey before. So let's jump in and see what the game is like. What the fuck? Why are there 19 different starting classes? Why are there so many fucking moves? Subclasses? Yeah! I'm okay. I get how it all works now. First and foremost, the team building mechanics. This shit is deep. I've played games with in-depth customization, but nothing like this. For the first few dungeons, this felt like it was gonna be one of those games where no matter how I played it, I was playing it wrong. There's so many different character classes and skill trees that I was constantly afraid that I'd be fucking something up. But you know what? I'm kind of amazed how easy it is to make things work in this game. I don't need a designated healer, I've got 2 or 3 passive healing abilities. Oh, I can leave the heavy lifting to 2 units and just keep debuffing enemies with the others? Awesome! It took me hardly any time at all to go from, I'm gonna fuck shit up forever if I don't do things exactly right, to wanting to toy around with different strategies and team compositions, which is a barrier that I never overcame in other dungeon crawlers. It's real easy to just build out whatever flavor of combat you want here and make it work with enough effort. The game does seem pretty welcoming to all kinds of strategies, and it's nice to see a game actually let you do stuff like inflicting statuses and binds onto bosses, unlike a lot of RPGs. In terms of dungeon crawling elements, the map. This is one of the big noteworthy features of Etrian Odyssey. You have to draw your own fucking map as you go. At first I thought this was pretty stupid, and just existed to pad out the game's runtime. At this point, I'm kinda neutral towards it. I like that they give you different auto map options in case this isn't for you, but it's satisfying to see everything come together if you're drawing it yourself. Though I'm sure some of you are watching this and thinking, what the fuck? If this looks stupid to you, I totally get it and I'm not gonna judge you, but I think it's fine. Another big selling point for this series is how it treats your units as characters, the whole shtick basically being use your imagination. When I first realized that this was another build your own unit game with no real protagonist or cast to rally around for the most part, I got worried. This is gonna piss someone off, but for example, Dragon Quest IX. This game makes the bold decision to forego the funniness and wit that's a staple of a lot of Dragon Quest parties, and instead make your entire player-created party these silent, soulless husks with zero connection to the world around them. I thought the exact same thing was going to happen here, but no. Etrian Odyssey gives your units these occasional tiny reactions to certain events. It drops their names in conversations, just these little things to encourage you to fill in those character blanks. Like NPCs will call out your weaker units and express concern that they're in such a dangerous dungeon. You can choose which unit you want to perform a potentially dangerous task, like who do you think would be stealthy enough to collect a rare item without alerting nearby enemies? I'm gonna sound corny as hell here, but this skeleton of basic character creation, minor events, and dialogue as encouragement to use your imagination is something that I resonated with, and I did kinda run with it like a goofball. It got me thinking, why are all my units traveling to these dungeons? What are they after? Which one's the leader? Which one is actually drawing the map on the bottom screen? What's with the unit that always seems to be stuck in the reserves? Is he stupid or something? Uh-oh, I just almost died to a group of easy-looking enemies because I was playing like a dumbass. Would my little dudes feel embarrassed, or would they blame the NPC that recommended they check this place out to train? Sure, you can play this game like any other dungeon crawler and just ignore all that stuff. And as a dungeon crawler RPG, it's really damn fun. But Nexus really gives you that subtle encouragement to make something out of the parties you create. I'm glad I was able to roll with it instead of just naming all my units after Death Grip songs like I always do in Disgaea. Out of all the games I cover in this video, this is gonna be the one that I'm most likely to drop 100 hours in. I really, really like this game. Do you guys remember in my old Pokemon videos when I'd end each one with, go play Yokai Watch instead? Because, back then Yokai Watch was the funny Pokemon ripoff. Out of curiosity, did anyone actually do this? Cause I'm not gonna lie, this shit goes hard. Yokai Watch did not deserve the shit and untimely demise that it got. These games were pretty good. Level 5 didn't give a shit about annual releases or rigid, repetitive storylines. Yokai Watch exists to be a fun game. And Yokai Watch 3 sure did only sell 4,000 copies in the US. Damn. Well, if you're one of those lucky 4,000 people, you can attest to the fact that this game was better than Sword and Shield, honestly. This shit is funky, dude. This game doesn't give a shit about anything. The main premise of this game is that you go to America with your yokai, but then everyone else is Borat instead of you. So you have to fight and catch yokai that are based on American icons like baseball and Henry Kissinger while dealing with fun, episodic wackiness. Like you have to help a beaver get to space, you make your own Detective Pikachu detective agency, and you meet the guys from the X-Files. Oh, sorry, the Y-Files. The Y stands for yokai. There's 2 playable characters, you can swap between them at any time, both have their own stories and yokai teams, and they're both pretty fun. Look, there's no way for me to coherently tell you all the stuff that happens in this game. All you need to know is that at one point you meet a yokai named Treater who is addicted to Twitter. So you befriend him by giving him your @ and saying you'll spill tea. This is such a dumb thing to say, but this game is literally a playable cartoon. The episodic conflicts are always a blast, the game's sense of humor is childish but fun, and the silly-ass music? Dude, it's phenomenal! I'm not kidding when I say that the basic encounter theme in this game is probably the best RPG battle theme I've ever heard. Pause the video right now and go listen to the shit for yourself. This goes crazy. Overall, the game's goofy, over-the-top aesthetic, it's just unmatched. The actual Yo combat is pretty unique too. It's nothing like Pokemon or even past yokai games. So you have all your yokai on this grid here, and you move them around to dodge attacks, receive boosts and stuff, while they can attack, guard, or do fuck all on their own. It's not an auto-battler. It's not like this. You're still engaged, just not in the way you'd expect. Like, uh-oh, Jibanyan gets Yo COVID and can't attack, so you gotta rub away all the weed smoke to cure him. Or you can charge up a yokai special move, but you have to be careful when you do it or another yokai might die in the process. Or if they manage to tough out the hit, you can swap them out for a yokai in your reserves. It manages to be hectic and fun despite the fact that you aren't issuing direct orders to your yokai. The one complaint I have about this game, it's more so a complaint with the entire series, is that the process of recruiting yokai is fucking awful. Basically, yokai will choose to be your friend at random. You can increase the odds by giving them food or having certain guys in your party, but I'm pretty sure this only changes it from like a 4% to a 5% capture rate. So because of this, you can't really plan out a team like you can in Pokemon. Like what happens for most of the game is that your team ends up being 3 or 4 shitty yokai, with the remaining ones being like the S tier guys you get from the play coin gacha machine. You get used to it. Once you start befriending more and more good yokai, it's not a big deal. It doesn't affect the difficulty of the game, just don't expect any team building freedom like you get in Pokemon. Between the aesthetic, music, yokai designs, and combat, I think this game kicks ass. I genuinely can't believe this game didn't get the attention it deserved. Actually, no, I can. Not only was this one of the last big games on the 3DS, even today I think a lot of people see this as the cheap-ass Pokemon ripoff. Look, if you didn't listen to me back then, listen to me now. Please give this game a try. If not for me, do it for Treater, cause bro is going through it right now. I have a weird relationship with Persona 5. Thanks to the iffy writing of the game itself, this bastard's inclusion in the game that ruined my life, and the shit I was going through while I was playing it for the first time, I'm not really a fan. Like, whenever I see this specific shade of red, I always want to puke a little. And every time I try replaying it or any of the spin-offs, I get this deep feeling that I should really be doing something else. But that hasn't really happened with Q2 for some reason. So this game is, okay, fuck me, I guess. So it's basically Etrian Odyssey, but without all the customization and character stuff I mentioned. Also, the map is slightly better because you can see unmarked walls you're facing and you get cool rewards for filling out each floor. But in terms of RPG shit, I don't think it's as good as Etrian Odyssey, or Persona 5. See, with Nexus, everything was complicated and confusing at first, but it ended up working because you had a ton of team building freedom. With Q2, it's certainly complex, but that's because you have more than 24 party members. What the fuck? With a ton of overlap in their attack elements and general roles. And almost every party member has a unique weapon that you have to buy separately, and you also have to keep track of your sub-personas. Everything just feels massively bloated. Team building is nowhere near as satisfying as Nexus, even with Q2's unique combat elements. When everything lines up and you have a good team, it works. I don't really like the boost system compared to regular SMT games, but it can make battles quick and satisfying. But when it doesn't work, which will happen a lot, it's going to drag like hell. If you don't have the right party members or moves to get an all-out attack, that encounter is going to take 10 times as long. The low point for me was right after you got Haru and Makoto, the only psychic and nuke users in the game until you unlock this guy. Then they immediately start throwing a shit ton of enemies at you that are weak to those skills, and you don't have multi-hitting moves or sub-personas with those abilities yet, so you just have to tough it out. Once you get the Persona 3 guys, it's not that big of a deal anymore. You can kinda just stick together any characters you want, and it'll work with the right sub-personas, but it doesn't feel that well thought out. It's not awful. I do like how sub-personas are a thing. Stuff like links and binds are translated over from Etrian Odyssey pretty well. And boosts aren't the worst thing in the world. Maybe it's just because I'm thinking of this as a Persona game, where battles can end super quick with the right super effective elements instead of an Etrian Odyssey game. Like, it's good overall, except for when it's not. The music is really nice, the aesthetic is fun, the alternate showing things can make for fun side quests, and that's where you get your crossover fan service interactions. The white guy in a popcorn costume for the whole game is real funny. But what about the story? Guess what? It's Persona 5 2! 3! No, 1.5, fuck. It's basically the same shit as Persona 5, but you're going into, movies this time. But it's still a part of the Persona 5 franchise, so you know the game's just gonna be sucking its own dick the whole time. Here's an example. So after you beat Kamoshida Man, don't ask, you get to the Jurassic Park ripoff movie dungeon. And in this movie, they're like, uh-oh, this dinosaur is being oppressed by the other dinosaurs because they're assholes, so you have to change their heart and make them not be assholes anymore. This is also the dungeon where you meet the Fruity Factory from Persona 4, and they're like, holy shit, we lost Yosuke in the Dino Jungle and need your help finding him. And this is the point where I think to myself, oh my god, the dinosaur's gonna be Yosuke. And then you find the dinosaur and it's Yosuke. And then you have to fucking kill him. But the funniest part is that after all this, just like in Persona 5, the party's main takeaway to all this shit is, this is just like how society is in real life. So yeah, I think Q2 is a better game than Persona 5 because it actually had the cojones to have a plot this good. And looks like that's it. Persona Q2 was the last big-name game ever physically released on the console that's worth talking about. That's all the games we've got for today. Man, that was a lot. My voice is tired. I'm sorry I couldn't get to everything that was released during those 3 years, otherwise this video would have been a lot longer. Plus, a lot of these games are too shitty for me to stomach, some of them are too boring. I didn't want to review a second Etrian Odyssey, even though I've heard this one's good too. And some... Oh, please, I already talked about that one. But in terms of what we covered today, I think with 2 or 3 exceptions, all of these games are pretty good. What's the takeaway from this? Was the post-Switch 3DS era just as good as the rest of the console's life? Well, no. I cherry-picked the hell out of this list. Not in the sense that most of these games are RPGs, I swear that wasn't intentional. But by leaving out the unnecessary remakes and ports, this era of the 3DS is obviously gonna look a lot better than it was. Like, when you think of this, you're not gonna think of any of these games, you're gonna think of dumbass Bowser's Inside Story and Treasure Tracker. Make no mistake, Nintendo was shoving this thing out the door once they realized they didn't need to keep it alive anymore. And these great games don't change the fact that it was slowly dying. Man, making this video has made me a little sad. I get it, consoles die, and this thing had the best run out of any console I've played, but I try not to get too personal in my videos because I know no one cares, but this thing and all the cool games it had, it really just means a lot to me. Gen 6 of Pokemon is what kept me going throughout school. I sunk way too much time into Kid Icarus and Animal Crossing. Smash was still fun back then. Even in these past few years, I was still discovering games like SMT4 and Planet Robobot. And the time period I covered in this video, the time period when the 3DS was finally showing signs of dying, was also when I was going through a ton of personal shit too, like starting college and leaving my hometown. And some of the games I went over today helped me get through that. So I have a lot of pretty deep associations with this in general, and that's kind of the whole admittedly selfish reason I made a video this specific. I sound like this guy right now, but the 3DS just gives me this comfort that the Switch and more modern games haven't really been able to provide me. But I'm glad I got to make this video. I'm glad I got to explore some of these games that I overlooked, and I hope that you'll give a few of them a chance too. Still, though, it's sad that the old bitch is finally super dead. Even though you can still play all these games right now, it's sad realizing that the 3DS has been dead for almost 4 years now at least. It's sad that I take this thing on every trip I go on and I've only received 1 Street Pass in the past year. It's sad that the Switch in general doesn't feel as fun or fantastical and is missing all those little things like menu themes and soundtracks that make just navigating the console enjoyable. And it's sad that the eShop, the last glimmer of support for this thing, is gone, and that the 3DS technically got outlived by the stupid-ass PS Vita, because somebody's still buying Minecraft on this thing for some reason instead of just... sorry. Where was I? You know, who gives a shit? There's still a pretty cool system. The games are still fun. This thing still has an active fan base, and I don't feel like a pretentious retro gamer weirdo playing it in public. So, fuck it. Who cares if it's dead? Who cares if it's 2023 and everything is dead? You can still play WarioWare and get a little sad about how things might suck dick now, but they suck dick a little less at some point. Wario's there to make you feel better. So, my dear viewer, whoever you are, whatever kind of weird emotions or life shit you associate with the video games you play, I hope you come out of this video with at least some idea of what game to illegally download next, or how to maybe cope with whatever you're going through. And if you're still a little lost, if you're not quite sure what to do or where to go next, I've got just 2 final things to say to you. Fuck the Nintendo Switch! Go play Yokai Watch 3 instead, bitch!